What's up guys, Asian here again with another build video, kind of a build guide so to speak. And this time we're going to be talking about a Templar Healer in the new trial Cloudrest. So Cloudrest is a new trial that came out with Somerset, and it ended up being a little bit different than some other trials. It's very similar to Asylum in the way it's made up, so you can do something like kill any of the 3 side bosses and then kill Zamaja. If you don't kill any of the side bosses, they'll all be with Zamaja when you fight Zamaja. So it's very similar to Asylum in that way. But it's also fairly unique in that it does introduce a new mechanic called Baneful Mark. And this has proved to be quite challenging on the PTS and when it first came out on live, how to deal with Baneful Mark. So this kind of build kind of centers around the changes that healers had to make in order to kind of adapt themselves to the changes that were happening due to Cloudrest. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the Templar Healer. There will be a separate video about the Warden healers. Just because of the way the mechanics work in the Zamaja fight, Warden healers tend to have a different job than Templar healers do. That doesn't mean that Templars can't do the job that Warden healers are doing, but Warden healers are better suited for a separate job than Templar healers. So their builds are going to be similar but a little bit different at the same time, so I do want to kind of touch upon those in a separate video. So in terms of gear, the Templar Healer is normally going to be the healer that is going to be sticking with the group. So in the Zamaja fight, there's a Shadow World mechanic where you have to go into the Shadow Realm, and Olorime will send out Spears of Light that you will have to send down into the Shadow Realm. Now, typically the Warden healer deals with that, like I mentioned. That will be covered in a different video and kind of how we approach that. So the other healer, either Warden or Templar or whatever, is sticking with the group as a result. So typically speaking, everybody is stacked up on Zamaja or the mini-boss, whatever is going on, and they're hitting it. So this healer is, the Templar healer typically sticks with that group. Now, the sets that we found to be most useful in terms of progression for Cloudrest, not necessarily for score or speed, is running Sanctuary. Because the way Baneful Mark works, Baneful Mark basically applies a healing debuff on whoever's hit by it, and it won't go away until you heal all the way up to full. Sanctuary ends up being a little bit of a good set here because it increases your healing received by 12%, and a lot of what Zamaja does can't actually be negated or reduced by things like Mending. So Sanctuary actually ends up being a pretty good set to use here. Now in terms of monster helms, just like with any other healer build, you can do Brogden or Earthgore. Those are the 2 main ones that are going to be pretty strong here. Brogden just because it has a very good uptime because it's a 6-second proc. But you can also use something like Rukugams if you want to do that, or Chokethorn or something like that. But generally speaking, Brogden or Earthgore are going to be stronger for this trial just because of the higher uptime, and for Earthgore because of that really strong burst heal that happens there. Now for our second set, a lot of groups are running Infallible Aether for additional minor vulnerability uptime. Now with the Wolf Hunter changes that are coming with the infused backbar enchants proccing off of backbar abilities, you might see Infallible Aether kind of fall to the wayside potentially, depending on how many shock enchants you are running on the backbar for your DPS. So if you have a lot of DPS running shock enchants on the backbar, then you won't necessarily need Infallible Aether anymore, in which case you can probably swap this set out for a different proc set, for example perhaps Olorime, or you can use Spell Power Cure maybe, or maybe even Mending, because Mending is a proc set. And generally speaking, you will probably want to run Aether instead and have your DPS run something like Berserker Flame instead for their enchants, because that tends to be a little bit stronger from based on my personal testing. So this is going to be on your back bar, and then your front bar you have a Master's or Asylum's Restoration Staff. It really depends up to you. Because Cloudrest tends to be more Magicka heavy rather than Stamina heavy, the Master's Restoration Staff does lose a little bit of power here, so most healers will be running the Asylum instead as their special Restoration Staff. Now, you do want power on both bars, again, in order to help combat Baneful Mark. You want a little bit more oomph from behind your healing, so powered is the way to go here. We have double weakening. Even though there's not many moves that are affected by weakening, weakening is still a good enchant to run. It really helps out the main tank primarily when he's dealing with Zamaja's Mind Blast and heavy attacks and Crushing Darkness. So we're still running weakening. It's just not going to be infused because we do want the additional healing power to help offset Baneful Mark, because our healing is going to be much stronger than DPS off heals. So now let's go ahead and talk about, so everything else remains pretty much the same. You would be You would be an Argonian, obviously, not a Dark Elf. Because Sanctuary has a health bonus, you can run all points into Magicka if you'd like, but if you want, you can put some points into health. I like the Ritual. I think a lot of the healers I've talked to are running the Ritual as their Munderstone for additional healing done. But you can go with Atronach if you feel like your magic regen is a little bit low. So for example here, I'm at 1800 without major or minor intellect, so it's a little bit on the low side for me, but that's kind of up to you. And this is with 3 Magicka regen glyphs. The main reason why it's so low is because Infallible Aether doesn't really provide you with any sort of additional regen bonuses. A Sanctuary doesn't have any regen bonuses either, so that's kind of the downside of running Sanctuary and Infallible Aether. Both your spell damage and your regen is going to be on the low side. That's one of the reasons why we're running Powered and Ritual here, to help offset the lower spell damage that we have due to having to run 3 Magicka regen glyphs on our front bar here. And this is with Witch Brothers, so you can obviously switch it out for something like Frothgars. You will end up losing some max Magicka, but you'll gain a little bit more regen, so that's one thing you could potentially do instead. It's kind of up to you if you want to do that or not. Now, the larger changes are going to be coming from your skills. So for your front bar, it's pretty much pretty similar to what you would run on any old sort of trial. So you have Energy Orbs, Healing Springs, Comet Prayer. Ritual Rebirth is the new basic Breath of Life. It's a little bit better. It's more expensive, but it heals you and everyone within 10 meters of you for about the same amount as Breath of Life does. So it's a little bit more because you will be stacked with the group. It's going to be a little bit stronger overall instead of Breath of Life. Now we have Overflowing Altar. Now this is not typically a ability that you see very often run by healers. It's normally run by an off tank. So the off tanks will still be running Overflowing Altar. However, because Baneful Mark and Execute is applied to 5 other people as well as the main tank, you want 2 different altars up, because the off tank can't get hit by Baneful Mark, and he obviously can't activate his own Blood Altar synergy. So you typically will have both off tanks running Blood Altar, and then potentially a healer also running Overflowing Altar as well. So you might be asked to run Overflowing Altar. So this is a flex spot. You can replace this with a different skill if you would like, but Overflowing Altar is typically what you would kind of default to here. And then you have Practiced Incantation. So again, Baneful Mark, you need to heal your allies up to full in order to get rid of the debuff. So Practiced Incantation is what will help get your allies all the way up to full. So this lasts for 6 seconds. It's a channel. It's a pretty strong heal overall. We're using this instead of Panacea just because this heals multiple people, versus Panacea, which only heals 1 person. So it costs the same amount of ultimate, so that's why we're using Practiced Incantation instead. And if you do need to feel like you do need to cancel out the channel, you can just block cancel out of the channel. For our back bar, we have Ellie Drain, Blockade, those are pretty standard. You have Channel Focus, Extended Ritual, pretty standard. Now the one skill that you might seem a little bit out of place is Bone Surge. So why Bone Surge? Again, it's all related to that Baneful Mark, how to mitigate it. So Bone Surge, when you activate the synergy, it'll grant whoever activates the synergy and up to 3 other friendly targets nearby, which also can include you. Actually, no, it can't include you because you have your own shield. It basically gives them a giant damage shield for 6 seconds, and it also gives them major vitality for 6 seconds, which increases their healing received by 30%. So that really helps the off tanks particularly heal all the way back up from Baneful Mark. DPS, you only really have to heal them up maybe 15-16k health. The tanks, on the other hand, you need to heal up a lot of health, 30-35k health. So having that major vitality buff really helps out. Now obviously off tanks can also run Bone Surge, but you will need to run Bone Surge yourself potentially, because off tanks can't activate their own synergies. And typically speaking, you'll be running a left group, right group, so the off tanks might necessarily not even be in the same group to activate each other's synergies, so you might need to run Bone Surge. And then, instead of Empowering Sweeps here, you'll be running Aggressive Warhorn instead, obviously because Aggressive Warhorn is the strongest support ultimate there is. So kind of the main differences here that you see between a healer in Cloudrest versus a healer, let's say in Hel Ra or Maw even, is the addition of Bone Surge for the major vitality boost, and potentially the addition of Overflowing Altar instead. So those are the 2 main things, as well as Practiced Incantation. So I know some healers run Practiced Incantation on their front bar, other healers run Barrier for additional Magicka regen, but this is one other potential change there. So not too much is changing in terms of healing Cloudrest. The main difference really comes from Bone Surge. Now this is again for a Templar Healer, or the group healer as you want to call it. Warden healers generally are better suited for a different task, which does require a different set of bars, so I'll be going over that in a separate video. So that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions about how to heal Cloudrest, I do have a couple of videos, streams, and other recordings of Cloudrest, so you can take a look at those. Those are from a tank perspective, but you can kind of get an idea of what the healers are doing by watching those videos, and I can always ask them for any answers for questions you guys might have. Hope you guys found this video informative, and I will see you guys in the next dungeon.